Well, the UK's Channel 4 has commissioned a documentary on the brutality in Myanmar. The programme investigates 3 mass killings and shows how the army might have committed war crimes by targeting peaceful protesters. Here's just a sample of Myanmar, the Forgotten Revolution.
For 50 years, Myanmar has been run by its army. After a brief experiment with democracy, they've again seized power. This time in a coup led by Senior General Min Aung Hlaing. Since the coup, almost 20,000 people have reportedly been killed as the military cracks down on dissent. For over a year, we've worked with a network of local journalists who've risked their lives to secretly document the army's brutal repression.
Well, Katie Arnold is the director of that documentary. She used to live in Myanmar and is now a filmmaker and investigative journalist, and it's good to have you here. It's a terrific documentary. Before we talk about the film, what do you make of these horrific executions that we have learnt of today?
Well, it's a very worrying development because the 4 activists that were executed over the weekend, they were tried in a closed military court. They did not have legal representation, so it is a major breach of their human rights. But I think that the reason why, and so another worrying thing is that 117 other activists currently have been sentenced to the death penalty, so I don't think that this will be the last execution that we see. But I think the reason why the Myanmar military has reintroduced the death penalty after 30 years, or more than 30 years, is that they want to instill fear in those that are continuing to resist the military regime. And, you know, our film, which you've just seen a little clip of, has shown that there's already many tactics that they are using to try and instill fear in the people of Myanmar.
We've yet to see a public statement from Aung San Suu Kyi, the leader of the National League for Democracy, and there will be those out there who say that she sort of, you know, she failed the people of Myanmar. I mean, I want to get on the ground. You spent, you know, a considerable amount of time there, living there, and you've made this film. What were the key takeaways for you?
On the ground? Yeah. Well, with regards to Aung San Suu Kyi, I think that the debate in some ways has moved on from her now. The years that she was campaigning for democracy in Myanmar, she always pursued a sort of non-violent approach. But I think the people of Myanmar now have seen such horrors and experienced so many atrocities from the Myanmar military that they've decided that the only way that they can try and restore democracy is to fight back. And I think that she has dominated the political debate for so long, but actually now there are a lot of young activists coming through with sort of new ideas which are actually you know, different to the one that she pursued. And so I actually think that you know, the political debate has sort of moved forward. But the people that we have filmed with, we filmed with a lot of these peaceful protesters who started off calling for democracy. They saw these mass shootings of protesters, of unarmed protesters, and then have fled to the jungles. And they are determined to eradicate the military institution once and for all.
How?
Through war, through guerrilla warfare. I mean, there are thousands of these young people who've fled to the ethnic areas along the Myanmar's border where they've received military training, and they're now trying to fight back. But obviously there's a huge discrepancy between the weapons that they have and the weapons that the Myanmar military are using. But despite that, they are actually achieving a number of successes. They are inflicting losses on the Myanmar military. I mean, it's difficult to get accurate numbers, but hundreds, if not thousands, of losses on the Myanmar military side. The groups that are aligned with these ethnic armed groups, they are making territorial gains. And perhaps most interestingly, these groups, they're called PDFs, or People's Defence Forces. They're across the entire country. They're all fighting back. The military is spread very thin as they're trying to suppress all of these groups. But they're really strong in central Myanmar, which doesn't have a history of resistance at all. And there, some of these groups have actually managed to wrest control away from the military and to set up their own sort of forms of governance and own sort of schools. And so the military is spread very thin. They're under pressure. And I think that is why you see them try and use even more brutal tactics to try and suppress the people. For example, the executions that we saw over the weekend.
If our viewers are watching this in the UK, they can see the documentary, which, as I say, is terrific, at 11:05 tonight, as I understand
That's
it, on
right, on
Channel
Channel
4. What's the future for the country?
Well, it's a good question. So the military, not so long ago, they actually said that they hinted that they would entertain the idea of negotiations with Aung San Suu Kyi. And a number of international bodies, institutions have been pushing for negotiations. But some of those same institutions, and interestingly, sort of Cambodia, who's the head of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, they've been wanting dialogue, they've been wanting negotiations, but they also said that they shouldn't execute these prisoners. And I think that the fact that the military went ahead and did it anyway shows that those sort of the door for negotiations are firmly closed and that they're not interested in it. I mean, there's the possibility of an internal military coup to try and get rid of Min Aung Hlaing and say that we're different now, but I'm not sure that will happen. And most importantly, these young people who have fled to the jungles and who are fighting back and fighting this guerrilla war, they are not going to give up until the military is fully eradicated. And so even if there are negotiations, even if Aung San Suu Kyi was released and she pushed for return to the status quo, I don't think that they are going to agree to that. And I think that it's going to be a long war, potentially a war of attrition.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you on.